What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hoop Hogs video mailbag. I'm Curtis Wilgerson with Inside Arkansas and the Pot at the Palace, coming to you with our daily Razorback basketball video. Man, we are one day away from Arkansas and Kansas. We finally get to see Coach Cal repping the Hogs on the sideline. We're going to see Slobber Hog at Bud Walton Arena. And we got the #1 team in the country coming in. It doesn't count, but people care because they're camping out for it. It's unreal. I can't get over that. That's just the way Razorback fans are, man. They're built a little bit differently. But I love this question here in particular. It comes from my buddy Paul. I got it on the bottom. The Purdue game gave fans unrealistic expectations last season. I won't be fooled twice. What can really be taken away from the Kansas game? I think a lot of people probably feel the exact same way you do because, Arkansas punks the #1 team in the country preseason. It just made you feel like they were ahead of schedule on a team that already had some expectations, and man, the season just fell apart. So I'll say a few things. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to try my best to tell you what I think does and doesn't matter in these exhibition games, and to each their own. I mean, you take whatever you want out of it, but this is just the way I kind of operate. But the first thing I want to say is, the Purdue beat writer, I can't remember his name, he took a lot of heat for saying that basically Arkansas prepared to win and Purdue was preparing to get better, preparing for the season or whatever in that exhibition game. There's some truth to that from the standpoint of people approach these games differently. And Eric Musselman's such a competitor. He went in depth with the scouting report and all that stuff to try to win the game, but it was also to help improve the team. And so no doubt about that. But I think a lot of these coaches are really focused on themselves rather than doing the scouting report, breaking down all the personnel and everything. They want to see where they're at, how they're executing the things they're working on. And I kind of get the sense that's where John Calipari is at, like where he falls on the spectrum. So it will be a little bit of a different approach, I would imagine, in this game Friday. Let's start maybe with what doesn't matter, the final score. Okay, it just doesn't, win or lose. I don't think it's been proven that it just doesn't translate into the regular season. I think these things just hit differently when they count. First of all, there's an added sense of pressure in actual games, but we can go back to all the correlations. I mean, you think about last year, Arkansas beats Purdue in this game, and they kind of fall apart, and the season just doesn't go well at all. There's no NCAA tournament, there's no NIT. The team was an absolute mess. Purdue, maybe it rose some questions about them early. Well, then they obviously figure it out, and they wind up going to the NCAA tournament championship game. So, you think back to a couple years ago, I talked about this on the Pot at the Palace last night over on Locked On. The Texas game, for example, they go down there to the Moody Center, they get beat by 30, and Eric Musselman's, basically in the post game was very much like, I told you so. This is going to happen. Sometimes your teams need that, especially when they're very young, which that was the Anthony Black, Nick Smith, Jordan Walsh, all those guys that year. That was a wake-up call for them. Well, they figured it out. They wound up being a Sweet 16 team. I wonder, against a very veteran Kansas group that Arkansas is going to be facing here with, 3 young freshmen that you're really going to be relying on, in a brand new roster, who thinks that they're really good. And I obviously think they are too, but maybe they need a little kick in the butt. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the final score of that game didn't dictate anything for either one of those teams. It wound up being the weird year for Texas, where Chris Beard, he gets fired mid-season, Rodney Terry takes over, and they were a couple plays away from a Final Four themselves. So, I think to some of those exhibitions beforehand where Arkansas was playing, like East Central, and they almost lost. It was almost like a buzzer beater kind of situation there. They wound up going to the Elite Eight that year, right? So that wasn't a huge red flag. Now, when Kenny Payne was at Louisville and they were losing all those exhibitions to D2s, it turned out to actually play a factor into what was to come. But I really think you probably take these with a grain of salt, because I do think the rotation is going to, or not the rotation, the preparation is going to be a little bit different in the approach for both of these teams. I think Bill Self in Kansas probably the exact same way. The other thing that I don't think really matters in this one is like whoever they run out there for the starting lineup. I don't think it matters. The rotation, I really don't think it matters. This is a time where you really try different things. You get creative, you mix and match a little bit. You're trying to get an idea of who plays well together, who doesn't. They're going to be trying a lot of different things, a lot of different combinations. And I don't think that's going to be indicative of what you're going to see in the regular season. This is where you figure it out now. So if you look up at the end of the night and you're like, oh, so-and-so started, but he only played this much, and whoever came off the bench and he played a lot more, none of that matters. So I wouldn't really put too much stock into that. What does matter, I think for Arkansas right now, injury row does matter. And I'm not saying like if you see certain guys who aren't playing in this game against Kansas that you freak out about it too much, but you have an eye on it, because I don't get the sense that they have really any long-term injuries, like guys that are going to miss a lot of time. But here's the deal with Arkansas. They've got 9 dudes who they went out and recruited with the idea of this is going to be our rotation. So the biggest thing about that is that's fine. You really don't need more than that to go win a national championship or a Final Four or get through a season or whatever. But you do kind of need to stay healthy. Like, you might be able to absorb one injury here or there, but they have been beat up. And I know that they're being overly cautious with guys with this in mind, in terms of making sure that they do get to 100% and they are healthy for the year. But if you're missing a handful of guys, it's at least worth raising an eyebrow to. And the other thing to consider is, if they haven't been practicing and they're not playing these exhibitions, does that kind of make you want to temper expectations early in the season? Because they've got some big games early on. I mean, you play Baylor the second game of the year. These guys haven't been practicing together as much, right? So it might impact the on-floor chemistry, the continuity, being in game shape, all those kind of things. So I'm going to be interested to see who plays and who doesn't. And then some of those guys who are maybe teetering on whether or not they're going to go, if they do, how much does Cal push them? I'll be interested to see that. I think that matters. I think it's worth looking at. In terms of the game itself, I think the freshmen, you really want to have an eye on them, and knock on wood, but all 3 of those guys have been healthy and in there every day in practice. I'm talking Boogie Flan, Carter Knox, and Billy Richmond. This is a great early test for them. And again, I'd encourage you to check out the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pot at the Palace edition we put out last night. But man, what a great opportunity for Boogie Flan's first college action to be against a guy like DeJuan Harris. What great opportunities for Carter Knox and Billy Richmond on the wing to be able to defend and go toe-to-toe with guys like AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin. It's going to be really, really good for them. It'll give you kind of a barometer of where they're at, what they need to work on. But, if they're kind of ready to elevate their game and step up to the challenge, I think they are. But I'm looking forward to seeing for sure. That is probably the thing I'm most excited about. And it matters, not from the sense of if they don't perform well that they're doomed for the course of the season, but you kind of get an idea of where they're at. And I think that helps you to maybe set some early expectations for what we might see from this group. The front court is something that I do think matters, and we'll see if Jonas Adu goes and how much he's able to play. But when you're facing, one of the better front courts in the country in Hunter Dickinson, who actually may or may not play himself, but also KJ Adams, Flory Badunga, an incoming 5-star. It's a great early barometer for Arkansas, because I really like the trio that they have. It's just such a unique mix. It's an eclectic bunch, man. They all do things a little bit different. It's a well-rounded group, but we're talking Trevor Brazile, Big Z, and Jonas Adu. I want to see how they hold up against another really, really good front court, because there's one thing I think you could look at and wonder about. It's not offense, it's not scoring, it's not being versatile, it's not protecting the rim. It's probably like physicality. And Hunter Dickinson, physical dude around the rim. He can step out and shoot it too. KJ Adams, very physical specimen. So I think it's a good test for them. It's something I'll be checking out. And then I think just the lessons you can learn from it. They'll see, the things they need to work on in terms of sharpening up their offense, their defense, their help rotations, their rotations in general. There are always lessons learned that come out of these games, win or lose. There are things that you learn about your team, holes that are identified, things that get exposed or exploited that you can tighten up. We don't know what those are right now, but, Friday night at 10 o'clock, we're going to have a much better idea. And then you can gauge the improvements that they make and the things that they shore up or tweak or change, whatever, for that TCU exhibition. And then it might be a deal where you plug up a couple holes and another one's appear. That's just the way it's going to be early in the season. But it's kind of setting the stage for where you're at, because it's your first real glimpse against someone else. And then you're just kind of measuring improvement and the progress that you're making when they play TCU, when they open up against Lipscomb, and then Buddy when they face Baylor in that second game of the year. So long-winded way of saying these things don't matter too much, but there's certainly stuff that you can take from them. What I wouldn't do is if Arkansas wins, say, whew, Final Four, let me go buy my tickets because we've learned that lesson. If they get beat up on in this game, like they did at Texas, you don't go, oh gosh, it's going to be a long year. Cal lost his fastball. Wouldn't overreact either way to that. But I think the game within the game with individual players, the young guys, who's playing, who's not, and the lessons learned, those are the things that we can kind of take away from it. So appreciate the question, my man. And I feel you on that one for sure, but I'm going to get out of here. We'll be back with another one tomorrow, probably more of just, a game preview for your Friday morning with this game being Friday night, but I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate you guys as always for the interaction, the engagement. It's been really cool. Make sure you're subscribed to our Inside Arkansas YouTube channel. Check out the the Hoop Hogs video mailbag playlist that we have over there, and hop over to InsideArkansas.com. We have our Arkansas basketball preseason headquarters where we literally have linked every piece of content we have for this basketball team, written, video, whatever. We got more than 80 pieces of content there for you to get caught up on if you haven't been doing so already. So I'm out of here. Thank you guys. Have a good day. We'll see you in the morning. Appreciate you.